Usual. All right, so we're doing number 23, slides 23, which is the endocrine system. And just to refresh your information, remember when we talked about the glands that make secretions, according to how the secretions leave the gland, we have two types, and this is very important to understand before we go into the endocrine system. The two types are if the gland has a duct, and that duct will take the secretions all the way until a cavity or a space or a hollow organ or something, we call that exocrine. Exo, out. So there is a duct to take it out, take the secretion out. And on the other hand, if the gland does not have a duct, we call it ductless, does not have a duct. So now the secretions does not have a duct to take it out, so it's not exo, it's endo. So the secretions will go endo, which is in between the cells. But ultimately, it will move and go to the blood, and in the blood, it's going to be distributed all over the body. The blood will distribute all over the body. So this is the endocrine system that we are doing, and in this case, the secretion is called a hormone, only if it is endocrine system. If it is exocrine, it is something else. There are different things, including enzymes, including a lot of things. But when it comes to the endocrine system, that's ductless, does not have a duct. So the secretions go in between the cells, move to the blood, distributed all over the body. We call that these secretions, we call it hormones. And according to the chemical nature of the hormone, we are going to divide it into two different types. Steroid, which is type of lipids or fat, and non-steroid, which is anything else. But most likely it is protein or amino acids. Protein or amino acids. Why is that important? We will discuss it. So this is very important piece of information that we're going to discuss the hormones secreted from the endocrine glands, falling in between the cells, in endocrine, reaching the blood, go all over the body, and we will see how they are going to interact with the cells when they reach it. So it will be all depending on the nature, the chemical nature. Is it steroid? Is it non-steroid? So the hormone, this is a chemical or a signaling molecule that's going to do the job for the endocrine system. It will take, it's like an order that go from the endocrine system and go all the way to the cells. And it will give them these orders somehow. We will discuss somehow because it's important. But this will remind us again, refresh our information, that the overall control of the body is two systems, nervous system and endocrine system. Nervous system, immediate control, but short term. Endocrine system takes time to make these secretions or the hormones. It takes time to make it, but it's long lasting. So it's long term. Okay? Nervous system, immediate, short term. Endocrine system is the other manager, and slowly to start, but it's long term. So it's going to take these orders to coordinate certain functions, and we will discuss the details. Hormones, it's Greek, that means to set in motion. It goes, moves, and go in, to the cells and do the actions and so on. Secreted by the endocrine glands or endocrine cells. What do you mean? What's the difference? Endocrine glands, endocrine cells. Yes, there are glands that the whole entire gland is doing nothing but secreting hormones. This is its job, to do the secretions. But there are others that this is not their primary job. They just have some cells that secrete hormones. An example of that is the kidney. Remember the kidney, we did the kidney, and I told you guys that the kidney, of course, the kidney is urinary system, part of the urinary system. It's not even an endocrine organ. It's urinary system. The function is to make urine. Is that it? No. It contains some cells. Remember the juxtaglomerular apparatus secreting renin and erythropoietin. So that does count, but those cells count toward the endocrine system as well, but not the whole entire organ in this case. So there are organs that are endocrine organs. We will discuss it. Okay, like the hypothalamus, like the pituitary gland. This is just an endocrine organ, and that's it. The job is endocrine, make hormones, that's it. But there are other organs that, beside doing their job, this is like a side job, containing some cells to secrete some hormones. Some neurons also secrete hormones, but we're not going to go much into that. So when we secrete, or when our, whether it is an endocrine organ or endocrine cells within another organ, in both cases, I mentioned that it's going to go in between the cells. There is no duct to take it out. So it will go in between the cells, reaching the blood, go to the target cells, and give the target cells the order, or working on the target cells. These are the different endocrine organs, and this picture is important. This is the least to be asked about, because we're talking about the endocrine system. You at least need to know what is it and how does it look like. So this picture is important. Make sure that you know the picture. Okay, and I talked about this before. I would do it this way. I can take this picture, okay, like this, without these arrows, and without the labels, or oops, or I can remove the names and label it myself, whatever you want. But you need to make sure that you actually know these structures. So the first one here is this one on top here, which is the hypothalamus. It's part of or within the nervous system. And I consider the hypothalamus to be the CEO, the president of the endocrine system. This is the top management, like the brain in the nervous system, or the cortex in the nervous system. Underneath the hypothalamus, there is the pituitary gland. I consider this the vice president. So the president make orders. These orders either go directly, it's hormones, but specific types of hormones. That's mainly orders. These orders will go to the vice president to rewrite it. Let's understand it this way. So let's say I am the hypothalamus. I am the CEO. I give orders, but I speak a different language. Okay, so I give orders in Japanese, let's say. And then if I send it to everybody else, they will not understand it. So I'm going to send it to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland understands Japanese and English. It will take it and rewrite it in English and then send it to everybody else. So it doesn't go directly from the hypothalamus to all these organs. It go to the vice president, to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland will rewrite it and then send it to the organs to do the job. We also have the pineal gland, and of course, for each one of those, we need to know the function and what does it secrete. Pineal gland, we have the thyroid. In the back of the thyroid, we have two pairs or four of these parathyroid glands. It's very tiny. Like thyroid gland is located right here, like under the Adam's apple, a little bit down. And it is big enough, not huge, but it is noticeable. If you switch it backward, it's two lobes, right and left. And there is an isthmus in between connecting it. Look at this, looks like this. Right lobe, left lobe, and isthmus. There are two parathyroid in the back of this one, this lobe, and another 2 in the back of this lobe. So we have 2 thyroids, but we have 4 parathyroids. We have the thymus, and the thymus is located, as you see here, like above the heart a little bit at the end of the trachea, like at this level right here. And let me tell you this. We did uh, immunity, if you guys still remember. We did the immune system. And I discussed and I talked a lot about the non-specific versus specific, or innate versus acquired. I hope you guys still remember that. So remember that the acquired or the specific ones are the T cells and B cells. T and B cells. Both of them are produced in the bone marrow, but the B cells are also activated in the bone marrow, while the T are activated where? Right here. In the thymus, secrete a hormone called thymosin that maturate and develop the T cells, and they take their name from this T. Here is another piece of information that we need to know. When we're born, we're still developing these T cells, so our thymus is big. And as we grow, it gets smaller, 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 smaller. So when we get older, it's barely there. It's replaced by fat cells. So it's not that needed. It's not needed that much later on. These are the 2 kidneys. On top of each kidney, there is an adrenal gland or suprarenal gland. Excuse me. Ad means above. Supra also means above. Renal means kidney, renal. So ad is a prefix. Supra is a prefix. Both of them means above. I hope you guys are collecting these prefixes and suffixes. It will help you a lot in the next classes. So ad or supra, both of them means above. Renal means kidney. So the gland that's above the kidney. And this is going to secrete the secretions for sympathetic and parasympathetic. Remember, sympathetic nervous system, we talked about it last time. Sympathetic, which is fight or fright, flight. If you're fighting, you're going to use a sympathetic. If you're not, which is normal resting condition, it's rest, digest, it's parasympathetic. The adrenal gland secrete the sympathetic hormones called adrenaline. Adrenal secrete adrenaline and noradrenaline, also known as epinephrine, norepinephrine. We also have the pancreas. Pancreas secrete the digestive secretions. No, the pancreas is 2 in 1. It's 2 in 1. The pancreas is exocrine. It makes secretions, all different types of enzymes that go through the ducts and go to your intestine. But it also has an island within that pancreas that's called the pancreatic islet. So is the whole pancreas endocrine organ? No, it's mixed, endocrine and exocrine at the same time. So it does have exocrine function. This is digestive. I'm not going to go through it now. We did before, and I hope you guys still remember that the main part, the acinar cells of the pancreas, secrete exocrine secretions, which are digestive enzymes, plus bicarb. And these enzymes go through the ducts, it's exocrine, and go to the duodenum specifically, which is the first part of the small intestine. But there is an island within this pancreas, which is called the pancreatic islet. The S is silent, so it's islet. An islet is island, islet, island. The pancreatic island or the pancreatic islet, also known as uh, islet of Langerhans. I don't know if we have this name or not. But anyways, uh, the last ones here are the reproductive organs. In females, there are ovaries, and the ovaries, all, of course, we know it secretes hormones, estrogen and progestin or progesterone. While in males, it is androgen, mainly testosterone. We will discuss the different functions, but I just wanted to emphasize that this picture is very important and it is one of the basics that you need to understand. So what are the target cells? Target cells are the cells that has receptors for these signaling molecules. What does that mean? It means this is a target cell. This is a target cell. There are receptors on these target cells. Here are the secreting cells or the endocrine cells making the secretion. It's endocrine. There is no duct. It go in between the cells, reaching the blood. It go through the blood and go to the target cells. And in order to interact with the target cells has receptors. Otherwise, it will not be able to do so. They have to have receptors. Like if you go to somebody, if you're visiting somebody, you need to they need to have like a ring or something to push that ring or knock on a door. There should be something that to tell them or to communicate with them. This ring is receptors in the target cells in order to respond to these signal or signaling molecules. Neurotransmitters, on the other hand, is something else. Neurotransmitters, we did that already. So neurotransmitters are secreted from the neurons and go to the target cells, whether the target cells are other neurons or anything else. But this is called neuro, start with neuro. So this is different, neurotransmitter. This is the chemicals for nervous system. The chemicals for the endocrine system are hormones, neurotransmitters in the nervous system, hormones in the endocrine system. So this is just for the purpose of comparison to understand what does it mean. Remember this, they are located like in these presynaptic vesicles and it moves, releasing it, go to the postsynapse and interact with receptors. Remember the action potential or the electrical signal that was here, just refreshing your information as we go. So here the action potential goes all the way until the end and then it cannot cross the gap if you still remember. So it's going to secrete neurotransmitters, crossing the gap, interacting with receptors in the postsynapse, and the postsynapse will also make action potential there. So action potential does not jump. You have to do this intermediary step. So this is the comparison between the two systems. Endocrine system secretes hormones that go through the blood to the target organ. While the nervous system, it does not use blood, it uses neuron to neuron. And what's neuron to neuron? Neurotransmitter. What travel through the blood? Hormones. The endocrine system is a messenger of the endocrine system, while the nervous system is a messenger for brain. This is how the brain reach its target. Travels for a distance, short, long distance. It travels through the whole entire circulatory system, while here the neurotransmitters travel through just this little gap. And both of them interact with receptors, hormones from the endocrine system versus neurotransmitters in the nervous system. Okay, this is a good comparison that we need to understand. There are other chemicals, something called pheromones, and these are substances that are released into the environment by animals. And they affect other target cells, like these pheromones between the male and female. It's for more for like attraction and uh, it can also be like for communication and so on. So this is their way of communication, which is behind our scope. We are focusing on the hormones. Hormones, again, are produced and it goes in the blood, reaching uh, their organ, a specific organ. And when it goes down by negative feedback, we are going to increase it. If it goes up, it's too much, we're going to lower it down. If you guys still remember the negative feedback, let me give you an example here. What happens if we are secreting too much thyroid hormone? Thyroid hormone is secreted, it go to the cells, communicating, interacting with the receptors. The cells are doing the job. If you're secreting, this extra thyroid hormone will go up to the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, the president and the vice president, and tell them slow down. So it will send orders to slow down to the thyroid, resulting in less thyroid hormone. On the other hand, if the thyroid hormone is not enough, it will go to the president and the vice president, hypothalamus and pituitary gland, telling them there is few hormones and it's going to increase it. So doing the opposite is negative feedback, and this is the main control of the endocrine system. It's mainly negative feedback. There are exceptions, but this is the vast majority. So hormones are signaling molecules secreted by the endocrine glands, of course. Um, some endocrine cells and some neurons. This should be in endo, not exo. Hormones are carried to distant targets via, of course, the bloodstream. The activity is controlled mainly by negative. Hormones are secreted in small amounts. Hormones are secreted in small amounts. Okay, now this part is very important. I want you to pay attention. So when you see any question, you should be able to answer it. And these, again, because it's basics. So I mentioned in the beginning that the hormones, according to the chemical nature, it can be either steroid or non-steroid. Steroid is lipid coming from cholesterol, specifically cholesterol. I think we all hear about cholesterol. Like I have a high amount of cholesterol. This is bad for my heart, and you know that stuff, right? Cholesterol. So the steroid is a lipid, fat, lipid coming from cholesterol specifically. And this is important, and I will tell you why. The other types are non-steroid. What do you mean non-steroid? Non-fat, it's not lipids. Not lipids. What else could it be? Proteins or amino acids or peptides. What's the difference? Yes, amino acids is the building unit for proteins. So amino acids, you put the amino acids together, you make a peptide or a polypeptide. You fold it primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary, you make proteins. So you put a brick, one brick is amino acid, group of bricks, this will be a wall, 4, 5 walls, that will be a whole room, and then all the rooms will be the house. So it can be any one of those. Is any one of those lipids? Of course not. Amino acid? Of course not. The building unit for the fat or the lipids is fatty acid. If you guys, we did that before. I'm just refreshing your information. So non-steroid is usually what? Amino acids or more than amino acids. Amino acids, put them together, polypeptide, put them together, protein. Amino acid, peptide, protein. It can be any one of those. And obviously all three are not lipids. So we call it non-steroid. All of them are going to end up going to the target cells and give them the order and that the target cells are going to do the job. But it it is different if it is steroids or non-steroids. Steroids, understand this. If you guys still remember the wall, we did that in the very beginning. The wall, I'm sorry, the membrane. The membrane of the cells is a double layer of phospholipids. If you guys still remember, phospho what? Phospholipids, lipids. So since the membrane is lipids and the steroid is lipids, lipid can pass through lipids, while anything else cannot. It cannot. What can go through the lipids? Lipids. So steroids hormones are lipids in nature coming from cholesterol. So when they go to the cell membrane, they go to the target cells. They found this cell membrane that is phospholipid. Phospho what? Lipid. Lipid. So lipid can pass through the lipid, meaning they will have no issues. They have the key. They can enter the cells directly. They don't need permission. They don't need channels. They don't need to be taken and doing something. No, it will just cross the membrane and it even go through the whole cytoplasm and actually target the nucleus. It will enter through the nuclear pores. Remember when we did the nucleus, it contained openings, tiny openings called pores, and it will go all the way to inside of the nucleus, targeting the DNA. When it targets the DNA, it's going to give the orders to the DNA. The DNA is going to make messenger RNA with orders to make a specific protein, and this specific protein will do the job for the cells, depending on what is the order that's coming. What kind of steroid hormone is it? The cells will do the function accordingly because the steroid hormone is going to interact with receptors inside the nucleus. Inside the nucleus. Yes, it can go through all of this. Why? Because this is lipid, and even the nuclear membrane is also lipid. So it's easily cross, and go into the nucleus, interacting with receptors inside the nucleus. That will interact with the DNA inside, and the DNA will make messenger RNA, a specific messenger RNA, to produce protein. Which protein? It depends on the hormone. The hormone is telling me to do certain hormone, to do this, to do certain, or to make certain proteins. I will make the messenger RNA according to the message that's coming with the steroid hormone. Messenger RNA will leave the nucleus through the pores, and I hope you guys still remember it go to the ribosomes and ribosomal RNA, transfer RNA. It's going to make the proteins that is desired in this case. So don't forget this. If the hormone is a steroid, because it's lipid, it will easily cross the membrane, which is lipid, passing through the cytoplasm, passing through the nuclear membrane, which is also phospholipid. So it's lipid, crossing until it finds the receptors. In all cases, whatever the hormone is, you have to interact with the receptor. Is that receptor inside the nucleus in this case, or outside of the cells? It depends. But you have to interact with receptors anyway. So it will look for the receptor, interact with the receptor, affecting the DNA. The DNA will take that order or signal, and it will make messenger RNA carrying instructions for a specific protein. Which protein? Whatever the hormone told me to do. And I will make that protein in the ribosomes. On the other hand, if this hormone is non-steroid, amino acid, peptide, or protein, whatever it is, in all cases, it's not lipid. It cannot cross the lipid membrane. So what to do now? Like if you have the key if you always come to my house, if you live with me, or if you come to me all the time, I can give you the key. So you don't have to like press on the ring or knock on the door or something. You don't need to do that. You just go and enter. I don't have to open for you. You just go in and go all the way. If there is a room for you, you just cross. You just go through the door and go to open your door's room and go to your room or go to that room that you're using or whatever. But if you don't have the key, you cannot enter. You have to press on the ring, right? This ring is receptor on the cell membrane. Receptor on the cell membrane. And these receptors, the hormone in this case is considered the first messenger, and receptors are going to respond by making a second messenger. And this second messenger is called cyclic AMP, and I do want you to remember what I'm talking about right now. This is non-steroid hormone, amino acid, peptide, protein. It go to the target cells. It cannot enter because it's not lipid. What does it do? It go to the ring, press on the ring, meaning it go to the receptors, interact with the receptors. The hormone is considered the first messenger. Why? Because the receptors will make another messenger. That's called the second messenger, which is specifically, most of the cases is cyclic AMP. There are exceptions beyond our scope. Cyclic AMP is the vast majority, good enough. Cyclic AMP, the second messenger, and this messenger is going to activate enzymes, and these enzymes and it's going to activate hormones or other hormones that's going to do the desired protein at the end. So you have to go through this because you don't have the key, because you're not lipid. Okay, non-protein have to interact with the receptor, and the hormone is considered first messenger. Receptor respond by secreting the second messenger, cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is going to activate enzymes inside the cells, and these enzymes are going to do the job and producing the desired protein. So hormones interact with the receptors at of course, the target cells. Most steroid or non-steroid hormones interact with the target DNA. What do you guys think, if you're following? Which one interact with the DNA inside the nucleus? Steroid or non-steroid?
Steroid.
Steroid, yes, because steroid is lipid, cross the membrane, go to the nucleus, enter in, interact with receptors, target the DNA. Yes. While which one bind to receptors on or in the target cell's plasma membrane? That will be
Non-steroid.
non-steroid. Why? It's non-steroid. It cannot enter, so it interact on receptors on the plasma or in the plasma membrane. Hormone is considered the first or the second messenger. This is first messenger. And the second messenger will do the job. Hypothalamus, again, is the president, and this is how I call it just to make it easy. Hypothalamus is the president of the endocrine system, while the pituitary gland underneath is the vice president. So look at the magnified picture here. This is the hypothalamus on top here, inside the brain, and the pituitary gland is underneath it. This is the president, this is the vice president. So the president make orders, send it to the vice president, but I see two lobes here. Which one? Yes, let me say it this way to make it simple. If I am the president, I'm going to give orders, but to make everybody else happy and participate with them, I am going to secrete some hormones as well, just a couple of hormones. It's not orders, or most of it is orders, yes. But I will tell them I'm not just giving everything orders, orders. I'm going to secrete some hormones, two hormones, and these hormones will be stored in the posterior pituitary, and then it will be secreted. So this is my participation. Don't think that I'm just giving orders. No, I produce some hormones, two hormones, which is ADH and oxytocin, and these are going to be only stored in the posterior pituitary and released as needed. While my orders, which is the hormones carrying orders, is in a language that all these endocrine cells all over the body do not understand. It has to go to the anterior pituitary, anterior lobe of the pituitary, and the anterior lobe of the pituitary will make its own hormones or commands or signals or orders in a language that the hormones understand. And look at this. Here is the hypothalamus. It will secrete certain hormones in the form of orders. These hormones or orders will go to the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary will say, okay, I understand this language, but all these endocrine organs does not understand it. I have to make a translated order or a translated hormone that these glands understand, which is ACTH, go to the adrenal gland. We talked about the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is two parts. There is cortex, which is the cover, and there is the core. When I talked about the adrenaline for the sympathetic, that was the core, the inside, the medulla. But this ACH act on the cortex. What does it mean? Adrenocorticotrophic hormone. Adrenocortico, adrenal cortex, the cortex. Hormone, the hormone that activate the adrenal cortex. What's a TSH? Thyroid stimulating hormone. The hormone that stimulate the thyroid. It go and stimulate the thyroid. That's it. FSH and LH, both of those go to the testes. Both of those go to the ovaries. Testes and ovaries. Prolactin go to the mammary gland in the breast of the females. And prolactin is coming from prolactation. Prolactation, toward lactation, promoting lactation, right? Prolactin, promoting lactation. So if you understand the meaning, you will know exactly what is the target. So obviously prolactin, promoting lactation. Where is the lactation? Of course, mammary glands inside the breast. Growth hormone, from the name, it go to all cells, all over the body to stimulate the growth and reproduction. Where are all of these coming from? These are all coming from the pituitary gland, okay? ACTH, TSH, FSH, LH, all of these are translated because of an order coming from the hypothalamus, while the prolactin and growth hormone are the participation of the pituitary gland. What do you mean? I mean, I told you that the president, beside making all these orders that go to the anterior pituitary, I'm going in a sideline, I'm going to make two hormones so that everybody feel that I'm participating. I'm not just the president who's just giving order. No, I'm producing two hormones, ADH and oxytocin. How about the pituitary? The pituitary will say, okay, I am the vice president. If the president is making hormones, I'm going to make my own hormones as well, not just orders, which is prolactin and growth hormone. Here is what I was talking about. This is the individual participation of the hypothalamus. They make ADH and oxytocin, and it will be stored in the posterior pituitary. ADH, I talked about that in the urinary system, anti-diuretic hormone, the hormone that's against diuresis. And I always tell you the same thing. Cut the word into pieces. Don't take it as it is. anti-diuretic hormone. And anti or anti mean against. I think we all know that. Anti. Hormone that's against diuresis. What's diuresis? Diuresis. Uresis is urine. Di means a lot. So what does it mean? The hormone that's against diuresis. The hormone that's against making a lot of urine, meaning we absorb water. You take the water back, so you end up making less urine. Oxytocin, on the other hand, is hormone that stimulates contraction of smooth muscles in the mammary gland and in the uterus. In the mammary gland, when the baby is told to suckle on the nipple of the mom, this will stimulate the oxytocin to be produced, and it will contract the muscles, pushing the milk out so the baby can take the milk. In the uterus, on the other hand, this oxytocin contracts the uterus during delivery to push out the baby. And if anyone here had a baby before, delivered before, or if you know like your wife or whatever, if you know like a lady that was delivering, you might have noticed that um, sometimes if the delivery is taking long time, you might see them giving like injecting something in a saline. That's usually during delivery. There is an IV cannula, and there is this saline that's hanging, and they inject something there. They are injecting something called pitocin. You don't need to know that. I'm just giving you extra information to understand. Pitocin is oxytocin, but not the internal one. They make it pitocin. They inject it, it go in the blood, go to the uterus, contract, pushing the baby out. That's in case if the lady, the delivering lady, does not have like strong enough contractions. And we talked about this before in the very, very beginning. I think it was chapter 2 or something. Remember when we talked about homeostasis, negative and positive feedback? I told you guys that the only positive feedbacks that we need to know is oxytocin, which is more lead to more, while everything else is negative feedback. If you still remember, like the uterus is contracting, pushing the baby out, the baby will dilate the cervix. The cervix will send the signal to secrete oxytocin, which contract the uterus more. The baby push more, secreting more oxytocin, contracting more, secreting more oxytocin, more lead to more. And this was the best example for positive feedback. Same thing for blood, but it's not our uh, uh, topic now. So the hypothalamus produce hormone that are stored and released from. Stored is posterior, while regulate activity, it's anterior. Okay, remember this, it's right here. Regulating hormones go to the anterior, while storing is in the posterior. Which pituitary store and release ADH and oxytocin? We just mentioned it. It is the posterior pituitary. Which lobe secrete these secretions? It was, of course, the anterior. All the answers are in a picture. Right here. Okay, right in this and this. I doubt much you will see a picture like this. This is too much. This is just for demonstration purposes. So we talked about hormones as a long-term control in comparison to the nervous system. Nervous system is immediate action, but short-term. Endocrine, delayed action, but long-term, including like growth. It takes years working. It takes time to produce growth hormone, and it takes time to affect and takes time to grow, to sexually maturate. to produce red blood cells and to maturate. And so unlike the nervous system, which act fast, touch something, you move away right away. So growth hormone is one of these hormones, and from the name, stimulate the growth of the body, of the entire body. If this growth hormone is working fine, it's doing the job, stimulating the growth of the body. What do you mean the body? Like all these bones and muscles and cartilage. So that's how babies become infants, young children, old children, adolescent, adults, and growing. This is how the body become bigger. It's the bone become bigger, the cartilage become bigger, the muscle. So the body built become bigger under the effect of uh, growth hormone. And where is the growth hormone coming from? Growth hormone and prolactin are the two direct secretion from the anterior pituitary, beside the orders that we talked about. How long is the growth hormone is stimulating us, like when we were like babies and children, grow until epiphyseal plates, which is at the end of the bones. These are the ones that make us taller and taller, or make our bone longer and longer and longer. And when they close, there is no more effect. There are some abnormalities that can happen from overproduction or underproduction. I would say this is kind of too much, but if you are interested to know, uh, if this is a child that's secreting too much growth hormone, growth hormone should stimulate the body to grow in a regulated manner, like you grow this much per year. But if it is double, triple, or 10 times, stimulating like fast. So those people, by the time they reach puberty, they are giants. We call that giantism, giant. On the other hand, if if growth hormone is secreted too much, over secreted after after puberty in adulthood, are we going to grow like taller and taller? No, no. Because once you reach that age, your epiphyseal plates will close. No matter how much you make of growth hormone, you are not, once you reach the full height, it's impossible to grow taller than that. That's it. Nobody grow taller, even if I give you like 10 times growth hormone, because there is no epiphyseal plate to make you taller. It's gone. But here's an interesting piece of information. Again, if you're interested to know, there are certain parts that respond to high amounts of growth hormone. You're not getting taller, your bone is not getting longer. No, that's impossible. But there are certain parts still respond to extra growth hormone, including this, the forehead, the cheekbones, the mandible, the nose, and also the fingers and the phalanges in the hand and in the foot. So you are not growing taller, but these parts are going to be more prominent and bigger. And what's the best example of that? Who is the US president who had acromegaly, this condition? Does anybody know? Did you notice any of the presidents looking different before he died? Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. You can Google it later. Google his picture when he was young. He was totally fine. But before he died, he had a tumor, benign tumor in the pituitary gland, specifically in the cells making growth hormone. And you will see by yourself, look at it. You will see like his forehead is bigger. He looked like more rough because of this prominence. like forehead is getting bigger, the cheekbone, the mandible, the nose, the fingers, it's still growing. These are called the acros, and that's why we call it acromegaly. Megaly means increase in size. Megaly, acromegaly. Acros are these parts become megaly. If you're interested to know, the opposite is dwarfism, and I think we know what's dwarf. It's under secretion of a growth hormone, so the pituitary gland is not secreting enough, so no enough stimulation of the body to grow, they become dwarf, very short. So look at this picture right here. Giantism versus dwarfism. Okay, and not much details, but look at this. Compare this to this. Look how the forehead is bigger. Look at the nose growing. Look at the mandible. Compare the mandible to the mandible. And even the fingers are not showing here, but look how the fingers are getting bigger. So all these parts are called the acros. Forehead, the cheekbones, the mandible, the nose, the fingers, are called acros. And again, if you Googled a picture of Abraham Lincoln, you will see him looking kind of something like this. And if you are one of those who like James Bond, if you like these movies, in certain movies there is a guy looks like this. He always like a big guy. He who like they get him like he can fight really hard and stuff. He looks like this as well. It's acromegaly.
He's got the big metal teeth.
Yeah, you obviously watched that. Yes,
Yep.
this was acromegaly. Um, so this is what happened. On the other hand, dwarfism, you don't need to know much about it. Just underproduction of growth hormone during childhood. Okay. And I'm going to stop here. So let me stop sharing.